Hi, good morning, folks. Welcome to Cradle-to-Career Strategic Planning Committee. We will be Hi, folks. Can people hear me now? Okay, I'm getting confirmations. Thank you so much. Thank you for working with me as I just worked that out. Brilliant. I'd love to pass it over to our chair of our governing board, our chair of this committee. Gavin Payne is here with me to kick off the strategic planning committee. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Can people hear me as well? And can you see me? Good, perfect. Okay. Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Cradle-to-Career Strategic Planning Committee meeting. My name is Gavin Payne, obviously. I'm the chair of this committee, and as always, today's meeting will be run according to the rules of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. We expect to conclude no later than 2 p.m., but I'm suspecting we might be a little bit more efficient than that. I want to welcome the other committee members who are with us today, members Cochran, Lee, and Van Natten. We're participating all remotely, as indicated in the agenda, and so the rule there is that I ask committee members to please ensure that at all times your cameras are on so that we can be in compliance with Bagley-Keene. 5 items on the agenda today, and all companion materials are posted on the C2C website. For members of the public following along to today's meeting, a visual and website link of where to find those materials is on your screen on this slide. So I want to set the stage a little bit for today's meeting. We've had a couple of strategic planning committee meetings. We've had some iteration at the board as well. We've had some iteration with the team and the staff. During agenda item 3, we will review the draft language that has come out of all those pieces of iteration, and it was updated itself, this draft, in response to board member feedback from our board meeting on February 25th. One note, since we last met, there's been a committee membership change. Designee Bjerke is no longer a C2C designee, and so he's therefore not on the committee. There will be, for this meeting, 3 opportunities for public comment and a couple of votes on minutes and things, and then a general public comment at the end. And so I want to formally, if I could please call the meeting to order at 12:05 p.m. and ask Stephanie Gutierrez-Valdez to please call the roll.
Chair Payne.
Present.
Member Cochran.
Present.
Member Lee.
Present.
Member Van Natten.
Good.
We have 4 members present. We have a quorum.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so let's do some dispensing of things. Let's go to move on to agenda item 2, which is the approval of the minutes from the February 11 Strategic Planning Committee meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes from members of the committee? Scanning. Raised hands? Nope. Perfect. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make the motion, Gavin.
Thank you, Meredith.
Second.
That was Debbie. Thank you very much. So, please excuse me. I tend to be less formal in committee meetings than I am in board meetings. So if I call you by your first name, please don't take offense. We have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll open it for our first opportunity for the public or general public comment. I don't have any speaker slips because we're all remote. Can we open it up, please, Stephanie, for any public comment?
For members of the public wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand on Zoom at this time. Okay, confirming that we have no raised hands, that closes general public comment.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. So we have a motion and a second. If we could please have a roll call of members.
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Member Cochran,
Aye.
Member Lee,
Aye.
and Member Van Atten.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes.
Marvelous. Motion passes unanimously as we do so many things at C2C. Thank you all. Thank you, Stephanie. Let's move on now, if we could, to agenda item 3, formally discussion, public comment, and possible action on the strategic planning process, goals, and objectives. I want to now invite Ronnie Jones, our senior consultant and able assistant from this in this entire process, to take it away. If you could please, Ronnie.
Great. Thank you, Chair Payne. I really appreciate your time today and the time of all of our committee members. During this agenda item, we'll be walking through the strategic planning process. We'll be taking a look at the goals and objectives. In particular, we are going to be reviewing the latest draft of the 5 goals and associated objectives and soliciting feedback from the committee members. Next slide. A quick summary of background. As you know, stakeholder engagement has really guided the strategic planning process by informing how C2C can continue to be useful and provide what is needed to make C2C's data, tools, and resources more user-friendly and accessible. This section provides a short overview of the background of the strategic planning process, just to spark everybody's memory, and a review of the process associated with how the strategic plan has been drafted to date, what themes have emerged from feedback provided by this committee as well as the governing board, and what next steps are after this session. Next slide, please. So as you might remember, there have been several opportunities for governing board members to provide input and feedback on the content of the strategic plan. The first of those was the November 14th governing board meeting, where a high-level overview of key big picture concepts that emerged from prior board deliberations were presented. On February 1st of this year, specific feedback on draft goals and objectives and planned content was provided by the Strategic Planning Committee. And finally, we met with the governing board on February 25th, and we received additional feedback on the revised goals from Strategic Planning Committee Meeting 1, and then we received direction from the board on next steps and revisions to be made. Next slide, please. There have also been multiple opportunities for additional input. The advisory board provided feedback on what priorities should be through interviews and surveys. There was a community conversation on January 20th, and then obviously there are public comment opportunities at all the strategic planning committees and the governing board meetings. Next slide. The overall feedback from the last several meetings have had some main themes. The first is to provide additional clarity and precision of language. There was a strong emphasis on refining language to ensure that the concepts are clearly defined and appropriately framed. And I also want to call out that we worked really hard to make sure that the language that we were using is accessible by many different communities, depending on language and speech and colloquialisms and those kinds of things. Feedback also was called out around measurability and accountability, with members calling for clear alignment between goals, objectives, and measurable indicators. The measurable indicators, as a reminder, will be developed as part of the annual work plans. So I know that there were lots of questions over the last several meetings about how some of these are measurable, and we can talk a little bit more about how the annual work plans will give us those metrics in order to understand the acquisition of these goals and objectives. Another area of feedback was around equity, access, and data literacy, and ensuring that we frame equity not just as access to data, but as meaningful and inclusive engagement from Californians. And finally, engagement, co-design, and trust infrastructure. So we received feedback that underscores the importance of public engagement, co-design, and stakeholder responsiveness across all of the areas in the strategic plan. Next slide. A couple of comments about next steps, just so that we can make sure that we know where we're going after today's meeting. Staff will prepare final edits to the strategic plan based on feedback from this meeting. And at the November 20th board meeting, members will review and take action on the committee's recommendations to update the strategic plan for potential adoption. And at this time, I'd like to pause and see if there are any questions from members about the strategic planning process.
Scanning. All right.
Excellent. All right, Gavin, I think you're going to, take us into our next slide.
Good. So, right. So just a reminder, this was the process item, not the plan itself item. And so if we don't have any questions and folks are pretty comfortable on that, let's go on to the next item, if we could, please. So before we discuss the plan, I want to just reorient with that process conversation a little bit about what the plan is too. We had a lot of conversation in our last meeting and in our board meeting as well about sort of the measurability, the really sort of fine-grained connection between goals and objectives and activities. For at least from my perspective, the sort of the goals of a larger 5-year plan are goals around what are the big ideas and what are the big things that we want to go after. The task then is going to be for us and mostly for the team to then put the goals that we've set forward in that 5-year strategic plan into an annual work plan that the board itself also votes on. And I think that's the place, as I've been struggling trying to figure out how to sort of measure against what we're doing. I think the place where the locus of that conversation happens is in that annual strategic plan. And so I'd like board members to think, as we're deliberating on the strategic plan itself, that we'll have another bite at this apple about actual measurement when we then have from the team the annual plans that talk about what the work plan is going to be, what the activities are going to be, and how we're going to measure against those as our responsibilities as board members. And that for us, at least, is an annual activity, which I think is a beneficial activity. So with that sort of framing, let's go on. Ronnie, if you want to take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. If you go to the next slide, please. Great, thank you. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that we will have a similar process to our last meeting. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to take a look at each goal and its associated objectives. So we're going to look at the pieces first, and you all can provide your thoughts and reflections and feedback. And then we'll conclude with a broader conversation across all of the goals and objectives to look at the strategic plan more holistically. So members today, during our deliberation time, might want to consider addressing the following question about, given the themes from the board meeting, which were on a previous slide, do we feel that the current version of the goals and objectives feel complete? We also have a preamble and some other things, but we're really focused today on the goals and objectives and if those feel complete and ready to move forward, which we'll take a vote on at the end of this. So questions about what our task is today, given Gavin's summary and where we want to focus our time. All right. In my very small squares, I don't see any questions. So if we could go to the next slide, which is goal 1. So I'm going to go ahead and read out loud goal 1 and the objectives, because I think that for our audience listening, it might be easy for them to miss any of this. So goal 1 is be California's neutral, trusted source of linked statewide data on how education and jobs shape opportunity and well-being. The objectives embedded under that goal include earn California's trust in our data stewardship by leaning on our value of transparency. Build open science and best practices and transparency into how the data system is built, data reports are run, and research data requests are handled. Identify priority questions and data resources through learning agendas that draw on input from communities, advisory boards, and partners. Maintain trust by continuing public governance processes for making decisions about the data system. And finally, embed privacy, security, and responsible data use into all operations. And so I'm going to pause and ask Chair Payne to lead us through our discussion.
So first off, let me just open it up to see if there are any questions from committee members on this goal. Scanning. I want to just make one personal note too, just in the number of conversations that I've had in the last couple of weeks, this opportunity, and this is under objective 3, and I'm speaking specifically to the notion of partners. It's just become clear to me in the last couple of weeks in conversations that even more deeply C2C can act as a good partner to data partners in some of the work that they want to do in collaborating with them too. And so I'm glad we've got that identified as one of our objectives as well, that this is it's a multiple way street in the work that we do. Are there any questions or issues or concerns?
Marianne has her hand raised.
Marianne.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of context. As you'll see in your materials for the bullet point, the second bullet point about build open science best practices, there's a footnote that still has a placeholder there. We've been in conversation with the UC Berkeley Initiative for Transparency in the Social Sciences, which already has a number of short explainers on their website about what open science is. And I've had a conversation with them about the specifics of what are the opportunities for open science practices that government providers of administrative data can advance, which is different from the researcher perspective. So I expect that in advance of the May meeting, we will be able to link either to one of their general resources on open science, or perhaps one that is a bit more tailored to government entities who provide access to administrative data. So I know that was something that you discussed in your last committee meeting, and we removed trying to define open science in a half sentence. And I just wanted to give you an update that we expect to have a resource that is linkable there prior to your meeting in May.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Meredith Lee has her hand raised.
Meredith, up to you.
Wonderful. Thanks for that update, Marianne. There might be value in linking to an international high-level principles around open science, as well as, and I say this sitting here at UC Berkeley, but not representing UC Berkeley, but rather my California Senate appointee hat. I believe the UNESCO recommendation for open science could potentially have that high-level principles of open science that might be a bit more of like an on-ramp or introduction to those not as familiar with it. So perhaps a yes and in terms of the state government pragmatic lens, but also internationally recognized by the science community. And then to go back to Chair Payne's call for questions, concerns, etc. This is not a question or concern, but I just wanted to flag that as a positive note, I really appreciate the addition of partners explicitly in the objectives here. We had talked about at the board meeting how the public engagement aspect of the strategic plan and the process is really quite unique and potentially for some constituents the first time that they've been invited to weigh in on a living strategic plan that won't just sit as a PDF forever and ever, but continuously bring in additional perspectives. And so for this specific first priority goal, I think the revisions around including input from communities are definitely spot on from my lens. So thank you. The staff I know worked really hard on this with a lot of input.
Thank you. Wonderful. Any other hands on goal 1 and the associated objectives? Okay. Perfect. Ronnie, let's move on.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. Goal 2, create data insights and tools that Californians count on. Objective 1, use user-centered design to discover and create meaningful data products for the public. Objective 2, develop and release useful public dashboards and data reports that tell human stories about Californians. 3, create and provide curated data sets for the public to solve useful problems in their lives and work. 4, enable external research through a secure virtual environment where researchers can do useful analysis that benefits the California public. And finally, collaborate to use data to help Californians by reducing barriers and creating tools that make it easier to move into college or careers. And before I turn it over to Chair Payne for discussion, I'm just going to point out that there was a request in the governing board meeting to really clarify between goals 2 and 4. And so we hope that you're seeing some clarity that this goal really concentrates on the public-facing side of the dashboard and uses for the dashboard. And we'll come back to that difference when we get to goal 4 as well. So Chair Payne, I want to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I actually have a comment on this, but I want to raise it, check on raised hands to see if other folks have comments on goal 2 and their objectives. Checking. Okay. So this is my aha, and I apologize that it's so late in the process that I haven't even thought about it until now. But what spurred this is the CalKids announcement that Marianne shared last week, in the notion that we have been sort of grappling with through the last. We've had a number of conversations through the last year or so of this notion of incubation, partners that we're sort of helping to tee up, useful work that goes out, but that we're not doing necessarily ourselves, that we're incubating. And I looked at this goal and I thought, we don't even have the word in this goal. And so with committee members' permission, I'd love to do some editing around the last bullet to make sure that sort of we have language that's about creating, incubating, and accelerating, as opposed to just use creating tools, to give us the leeway in that space to talk more deeply about incubation, as we have been talking about it ourselves for the last year or so. Responses, notions, ideas? Meredith?
I completely agree. And also, I was hesitating to go into the wordsmithing at this late hour, but it did pop up when you were speaking, that we have useful in the second objective, useful public dashboards and data reports. Of course, we all support that. In the way that useful, the word is used in the third bullet point, useful problems, it implies a bit of a judgment. And so I would propose potentially specific problems if we want to have that as a clarifying to just any problems. But along the same lines, it's probably worth it to do this here versus at the governing board meeting if we have concrete suggestions to add clarity and additional programs.
Absolutely. I'd rather do it here than there. So would you just strike the word in that third bullet? Would you just strike the word useful?
Create and
For example,
provide curated data sets for the public to solve problems in their lives and work. Seems fine to me. Or if we wanted to have a qualifier like specific problems, that would be preferable to useful problems, I think.
probably preferable to the team too, so that we're not held to account for everything being useful.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be
Yeah.
comfortable with specific in place of useful. Other members?
Debbie Cochran.
Debbie?
Is on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. I also, the word useful had also struck me in both places. So I'm glad Meredith, brought it up. I had the same thought about on the dashboards. I think it is good there, because you can't create limitless dashboards. You need to think about what's the most impactful. I think the issue for me in bullet 3 with the word useful is that it's not the problems that are useful. We need the solutions to be useful. So I think if we could either sort of reorient the word choice there, or really what it's about is solving kind of impactful problems or meaningful like problems that are, that impact people's lives. So I think maybe the choice is really, what are we trying to describe, the solutions or the problems? Useful problems is an odd one. I also will just say, and I wasn't going to say anything until I raised my hand on the word useful, but I'm not sure I actually understand, Gavin, can you say a little bit more about the incubator?
Yeah, we've been grappling with this thought. What sort of the sort of best example is sort of CalKids that we came together to help solve with other agencies, and a useful problem that is not necessarily something we are going to operationalize ourselves. So that's sort of the term of art with Incubate. It's the same kind of relationship that we have with, for instance, CCGI, where we sort of partner with them to incubate the activity that CCGI is itself taking on. And I think the other example too is that we've been a pretty key partner with our colleagues and our partners at the community colleges on the career passport activity. And that's something that they hold, but that we have a key role in. And so in that instance, I would apply the term incubation there. You could also apply any number of other terms, but I think it's the one that we've been using in board meetings and in board materials for the last year or so.
Executive Director Bates.
I'm sorry, curate is, pardon me?
Executive Director Bates.
Oh, yeah, yes, please, Marianne.
Gavin just said everything I was about to, so thank you. But I think just to add a little more detail on that, the incubation and acceleration phrase is what we've heard you all discussing over the last few months, specifically in cases where we have a clear role, but we're not owning the thing. So exactly as Chair Payne just mentioned on the Community College Chancellor's Office for both e-transcript and Career Passport, we have the role of being the table where people come together to share ideas so that these tools that are built by the community colleges are useful for the whole state. That's a role that's different from us owning all of that work and doing it ourselves. But it's also not that we're not involved at all. And so this incubation and acceleration language can help explain, why are we involved in the career passport, right? Oh, it's because we're serving as an incubator accelerator for this tool that's being housed in one state entity that needs to work across state entities. So that's where I think what I heard Chair Payne say at the start is that the second half of the last bullet point we're looking at here, instead of just saying creating tools, we could say create, incubate, or accelerate tools. And that leaves the door open for us to do things directly ourselves, like CalKids, or working with partners like eTranscript and Career Passport.
I think that makes sense.
Member Lee.
Member Lee?
This is a fascinating discussion. I think from an sort of startup ecosystem lens, incubate and accelerate may have additional expectations from the community. And I wonder if enabling or facilitating developing might match the office's current scope while providing additional room for growth. Or it's an opportunity for FAQs on what we mean by incubate and accelerate.
Yeah.
That's true also.
Yeah, and Chair Payne and Executive Director Bates, can you clarify exactly which objective you're referring
Oh,
to?
so it's the tools objective. It's the last objective. Basically,
Okay,
I think the idea would be to sort of insert, instead of creating,
Got it.
if I heard it, create, incubate, and accelerate tools that make it easier to move into college and careers. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes, thank you so much. No, I just at one point I heard the second to the last bullet, so I was just making sure that I had it correct in my notes that it's the last bullet.
I got you.
Thank you.
Okay. I also want to, any other comments on that last bullet or the incubate concept?
I would be, this is Director Bates.
Yep.
Kimberly, I would be curious what expectations you think the community would have from the words incubating and accelerating. Would it be that we're funding, right? In the private sector, sometimes accelerators or incubators are about specific funding, if that's the concern, because I think a lot of the other connotations, at least that I'm familiar with, around providing technical assistance or lifting something up and making it visible to more audiences, or kind of all of those may align and may help people imagine something more concrete than a word like enable that can mean almost anything. So I'm curious if there's specific things you're worried about with those two words that a footnote or an FAQ in the future could solve.
I guess it's when you turn the verb to incubate or to accelerate to an incubator or an accelerator. And that sort of expectation from the community for funding, resources, sort of a whole scope of work that might go beyond the office's current objectives, spin outs, spin ins, venture, etc.
Yeah.
Also, while I definitely appreciate adding some additional flavor to creating and facilitating and enabling, incubating, accelerating all of these, if we were to do that, it strikes me that the reducing barriers part of that sentence might be a little bit hard to parse out. So, reducing barriers to what? And I would just pause to make sure that whatever's added also allows the reader to clearly flow from the top of that sentence to the end.
Yeah, fascinating. So I'd be very, just for myself, I'd be comfortable with striking reducing barriers just by, and keeping it objective. There we go. Other thoughts, ideas, any hands? Okay. Thank you for that, Member Lee. I want to go back though to the solving useful problems piece too, and just put a pin in. We won't necessarily do wordsmithing, but I think Member Cochran combined with Member Lee's comments about recasting that as a proactive and perhaps recasting the sort of the problems part of the verbiage there is something that we'll need to do going forward. Does that make sense, folks?
Chair Payne, I have written down several of the suggestions that were provided, specific, impactful, meaningful, and then we can iterate from there to come back with a word that we would recommend.
Okay. Well, and hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a mechanism to make sort of those little technical changes without us having to engage in wordsmithing right now. Okay.
Yes, that's great.
With those stipulations, are folks comfortable with goal 2 and its objectives? Any objections? Hands raised. Okay, we're good. All right. let's move on. Thank you. Thank you all for that. It was a robust conversation. So let's move on now to goal 3. Ronnie.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. Goal 3, provide equitable access for information and tools for all Californians. Objective 1, tell a clear story about why data insights matter. 2, regularly engage stakeholders to collaboratively design products that address the needs of communities throughout California. 3, maximize reach, strengthen understanding, and expand community use of tools by implementing effective community-driven delivery methods for California's population. And 4, develop and implement data literacy efforts that address the diverse needs of individuals across California.
Marvelous. Comments, suggestions, questions? Hands? Interest? Point of personal privilege. I need to ask this question. Is stakeholder currently an appropriate word for us to be using as opposed to interest holders?
That's a great question. We have had several state agencies, CDE, for example, the California Department of Education no longer uses stakeholders, so we can bring that back and better understand what C2C stance is on that.
Okay.
Marianne Bates.
Yeah, Marianne.
I'm very curious to hear the committee's thoughts on this. We have had internal staff conversations about using the word interest holders and have used that term in our materials in the past as well.
No comments? Okay. All right, thank you. Oh,
Sorry,
Sorry,
I couldn't
yeah,
get to my
remember
hand
Lee.
fast
Yeah,
enough.
sorry. Remember Lee.
Um, sorry, Chair Payne, what did you suggest, sort of for the second bullet point? It cut out for a second.
is the term stakeholder still current, and should it instead be a term like interest holders?
Interest holders. I wonder if engaged community members or just something like that. I realize we have the needs of communities in that sentence already, but maybe that would be less jargony than interest holders. I think
Yeah.
I definitely support alternative word choice. However, interest holder sort of begs to have a footnote on what do you mean by that.
No, I know. I know, and that's exactly right. That and I've grappled with it in various other venues as well. For me, the term stakeholder does capture more than just the communities. It captures partners and communities of partners as well, and so that's why I'm sort of grappling with that issue. Perhaps I raised it without it being necessary, but I just wanted to get it out there.
Maybe we don't need a noun there. Maybe broadly engaging to design products, etc. Is one way to use less ink and also keep it open.
Okay. Not a bad idea. All right. If folks are comfortable with that sort of stipulation, we'll send that one back to the team as well. Other comments or raised hands on goal 3? Yes.
Member Van Natten.
Member Van Natten.
I like Member Lee's approach to take the noun out. It's in the goal. It's for Californians, so I think that if we do that, it totally works for me.
Okay. Marvelous. Thank you.
Member Lee.
Member Lee.
One more thing. I believe when Roni voiced over, she said community-driven delivery methods, and it says community-defined.
Oh, sorry. That's my mistake.
I would support driven. I wonder, community defined makes me wonder how are we empowering the community to define those delivery methods?
I'm with you on that. Okay, thank you. Other hands? Yes,
Member Cochran.
Member Cochran.
I just wanted to get a little clarity on this idea on the second bullet regarding taking out the noun. I don't know if is the proposal just to take out the first four words, or is the proposal to use the word engagement without specifying who is engaged? Because I'm flagging that because I think we still need to bring in the engagement. It feels like the engagement is what makes it fall under this goal rather than the prior goal. If we left it just at collaboratively designed products that address the needs of communities throughout California, that's a great goal, or that's a great objective. If that belongs more under goal 2.
No, I thank you for that clarification. I think engagement is key in that space, and so I don't know that we would strike the first four words. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the engagement piece of it is the piece that I think is the key to that goal.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective, defer to the committee.
Member Van Anten had her hand up and then took it down. So I'm just checking to see if you had anything to add.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I was just, and I then nodded my head and like, can you capture that in notes? I'm not sure. So yeah, I think the engagement is really important. So like, regular engagement to collaboratively design products. I think that was what Member Lee maybe said, but absolutely agree, it needs to be in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Goal 3.
And Meredith Lee.
Member Lee.
Just for the record, I completely agree that engagement is key there. And so the brainstorming was something like engaging collaboratively to design products that address the needs. And you could flip it. You could say engaging broadly throughout California, et cetera, but yeah, engagement definitely I think should stay.
Thank you for the affirmation.
Great.
All right. With those stipulations, let's move on, if we could, please, to goal 4. Ronnie.
Great. Thank you so much. Goal 4, build a flexible and secure data system that continually adapts to the needs of Californians. The first objective, build the data system for scale and flexibility so it answers questions today and in the future. Adapt to changes in laws, standards, and industry guidance so that the system stays compliant. Routinely review and update security and privacy practices so the system is safe and secure. Continually review and identify gaps in data access and availability. And finally, reduce the administrative, technical, and operational burden of sharing data between state entities.
Hands, comments, questions? Marvelous. All right.
No, we have one.
All
Member
right.
Lee.
Member Lee.
The second objective where it says adapt to changes in law, standards, and industry guidance, I would propose industry best practices rather than industry guidance. I'm happy to elaborate if needed, but I believe the intent is probably to look at best practices.
So I'm gonna defer to Director Bates on this one too. Best practice for me gets captured inside of standards, but this is not my area of expertise. So defer to the committee and Marianne on this.
I would actually be curious to hear more of Member Lee's thoughts. You said you might want to elaborate. I think what I'm hearing you say, there is guidance that we need to adapt to, but that's more government guidance, right? So guidance from federal departments and agencies, for example, or changes in regulations that affect state data sharing. I think what I'm assuming you're referring to is when we look to the private sector and industry, it might be more about best practices as opposed to guidance we must follow, which is probably the connotation of that word a bit more. So I'd be curious.
100%. I think if it said, public sector guidance. I would read that very differently than industry or private sector recommendations and such. I definitely would underscore that just looking at laws and standards isn't probably enough. There's a lot that goes on in terms of best practices, norms, updates along the way that we would want to include. And the flag was just the combination of industry, which could be interpreted as private sector, and guidance could be potentially problematic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, both of the definitions but what I would actually suggest is that we might want to play with laws and guidance as a whole from the public sector piece, and then deal with standards and industry best practice and do it that way, if that makes sense.
Sounds good.
Executive Director Bates.
And Director Bates.
To try to make Ronnie's job a little easier. I think to implement what I just heard Member Lee saying, we could keep the first part the same. Adapt to changes in laws, comma, standards, comma, guidance, comma, and industry best practices. So that way the guidance piece is still there. There's going to be guidance we need to adapt to, but it's clear that the private sector would be about learning best practices, being innovative, cutting edge, and isn't conflating that. Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I had lots of words written down for revisions, so I appreciate that, Director Bates. Any final comments on goal 4?
Seeing none.
All
Let's
right.
move on. Number 5.
5. No, goal 5 is where both in the first strategic planning committee and the board meeting, there was very little feedback. So if there's anything that comes up now, this is a great time to identify that. So goal 5 is optimize organizational and operational culture, recruit and retain top talent on the C2C team, operationalize C2C's shared values, use current and accurate fiscal and administrative data to inform resource prioritization and decision making, make meaningful partnerships inside and outside of state government, define outcomes and measure what matters, manage risk within a complex compliance landscape.
Okay, comments, questions, raised hands? Silence is assent. All right, marvelous. So that's goal 5. Now we've had an opportunity to individually discuss each goal and their objectives, and have some stipulations and changes that will need to be made. The next part of member deliberation will be on the strategic plan as a whole. The idea here is that, can we answer these questions? Yes. Are people comfortable with that? And let's open it up to folks' comments. Can we answer these questions in the affirmative? Comments?
You got a head nod.
I've got
I got a head nod.
nods.
And I'll just, as people are reading them and thinking about it, I'll just say that we came to these yes or no questions instead of the more broad, open-ended questions that we have, because we feel like if this strategic plan does these and you're able to answer yes to these, then it is most likely ready for review by the governing board with some of the revisions that you all have talked about and suggested here. So
Yeah.
it looks like Member Cochran has her hand up.
Thank you.
Just briefly wanted to say, I do think it meets these, it achieves these goals. And I also just want to give kudos to the folks who have worked on it. I know we threw a lot of ideas and issues and questions at you all in our last strategic planning subcommittee. I know the full governing board sent even more. And I think y'all did a great job with this. So thank you for all the work.
Thank you, Member Cochran. Other comments?
Member Lee.
Member Lee.
Definitely agree with Member Cochran. And then also, just so it doesn't get lost, I do think there's value given the process and the public nature of the strategic plan to have a shortened version that has the goals and maybe, a couple examples or whatnot, but it's just easier to have as a nice card in your pocket type of thing.
Totally agree.
Yeah, thank you. We've been talking about communication strategies, which it feels like that falls under. There are different ways to communicate and utilize this document. So we appreciate that prompt.
And I suspect Shannon is ready to go.
Van
Member Van Atten.
Agree with my colleagues. I would answer yes to all these questions, and I love the idea of the condensed one pager. I think it really helps me answer yes even further to the second bullet. So I love that idea.
Okay, marvelous. I think that takes us to a motion, if I am not mistaken. Oh,
Executive Director Bates.
Director Bates.
So I just wanted to say, just before this meeting, I was in one of the GovOps directors meeting, giving all of you a shout out for creating a 5-year strategic plan that's only 5 pages long. And our secretary is really into, efficiency and saving resources. So I think that even just the length of the whole thing, just want to give all of you a shout out for not turning this into a 50-page document, because this increases the likelihood that people actually read it, and it also makes it much more feasible to have either a one page or a landing page or whatever Shannon's team decides will be most useful to really bring the essence of this out. I think the other thing, just in talking with my team about this, and I want to give Ryan credit for this idea, is it's wonderful that we've done the wordsmithing here, and I think we all have a sense of anticipation about whether further wordsmithing would happen in May at the meeting, the overall meeting. And one useful, perhaps, decision-making tool to think through is, would a proposed further edit meaningfully change what we as an office put into and you review and approve in our annual work plans over the next 5 years? So thinking about are there further changes that need to be made to really make this clear, or is this something where it's one word or the other, but it wouldn't meaningfully change whether we put something in our work plan and how we put it in. So as an example, I do think what Chair Payne raised today around ensuring that we have some words around incubation or acceleration is in that category, because it can meaningfully affect how we talk about or whether we take on different projects in the coming years. But just wanted to share that idea. I thought Ryan expressed that well, and that might help us think about landing the plane together as a full board in a couple of weeks on this as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think that's all for me, Chair Payne.
Yeah.
And
I think we're ready for a motion. Do we have potential language for a motion that we can put a slide up? So I want to obviously thank all of you members for both your engagement here and in the board meetings, and here again, and anticipating engagement on board discussion that we're about to have, and that Director Bates just presaged for us. This is the suggested motion. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody would like to make that motion, I would love to hear it. Hands?
I'm happy to make the motion. Do I have to read it?
No, you do not.
Great, done.
Moved by Member Cochran.
Let's just add for the minutes that Member Cochran moved the motion as displayed on slide 29, and then we can write it in the minutes, because it's important to be able to put the motion in the minutes, and I don't think you need to waste your time reading it. So if you just amend your motion to say, I move the motion as written on slide 29, something like that.
I move the motion as presented on slide 29.
Thank you, Member Cochran. I appreciate that. And thank you to our esteemed legal counsel for making sure that we're following the rules.
Yeah, it's and for always being difficult. I apologize, but I appreciate you guys so much.
Thanks, Julie. All right, so can I have a second, please?
I am happy to second the motion as written on slide 29.
Thank you, Member Lee. Appreciate it. So that before we vote, obviously, we need to allow for public comment. This time, we will open it to members of the public. I don't have any speaker slips, obviously, because we're remote. There are no comments here in Sacramento that I can see in this remote location. And so let's move to the Zoom. Stephanie Gutierrez-Valdez, could you please offer that up?
For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you'd like to make a comment. Okay, I'm pausing here. Okay, I see no raised hands. That closes the public comment portion.
Marvelous. Thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. Stephanie, could you please call the roll?
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Member Cochran,
Aye.
Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Van Natten.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 4 ayes.
Marvelous. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for all of your time on this. It's been a long process, starting in the first meeting that we had in 2025, leading up to now. So thank you all for that in that process. And we have one more meeting to go on this, and looking forward to another robust discussion. So now we're going to move on to, as it's customary and required, general public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. We'll open it up to members of the public for anything not on this agenda today. So Stephanie, could you please go ahead and open up the Zoom to see if there is general public comment?
For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time. Okay. Pausing here. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that closes general public comment.
Marvelous. And members, and we don't need the timer, but members, thank you. That leads us to the last item of the day. That's adjournment. I'm going to take the priority of the chair to say thank you to everybody who was involved. As I said before, committee members, especially Ronnie, you especially, all of our folks at the office, from Marianne on down, who have been hugely involved in this, and then also finally members of the public who have, through a number of our engagement activities, have offered their comments as well. So thank you. As you know, we'll have the opportunity to review and adopt the final strategic plan at our next meeting, which is on May 20th, and hope to see all of you there. And then you'll see more information on the C2C website. And so now with that, if I could please, I would like to adjourn the meeting at 1 p.m. on the dot, and thank you all also for your efficiency and effectiveness in conducting this meeting here. So thanks very much. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks. Take care.